Howdy, my name's Nolan, and I'm joined by
Isaiah,
Natalie,
Leilani,
Noah.
And this week we watched the 1962 horror suspense classic Carnival of Souls. Welcome to Cinema Sit Down. So, Carnival of Souls is seemingly kind of divisive. It's pretty different. Does a lot of things that not other movies do, but I liked it a lot. So, just first thing, what did you guys think about it?
that's a good question. At first, I wasn't really into it that much. Obviously it's kind of a older and low budget movie, so the audio in the beginning kind of rough. And I wasn't really getting into it. I didn't really feel the horror elements yet. But later on, once they started to really go into the main character, I forget her name, but I actually really liked her character, and I think that's what drew me in rather than anything else in the movie.
We had previously talked about this movie a lot, so I was highly anticipating it. And you mentioned the audio. I kept noticing her footsteps every time. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just funny to pay attention to. But initial thoughts, I was just like, what is going on? I'm always confused now.
Mad confused.
Yeah, I think it was not exactly what I was expecting. It definitely did have a couple good themes to it. But yeah, the audio is something that I definitely noticed. I was kind of thinking over like some of the different techniques that they put in, especially for the time. But overall, not too bad.
Yeah, I think I had too high expectations because we had talked about it so much and how it had a renaissance and all this other stuff. So I went in high expectations, and it took me a minute. You know what I'm saying? It's a film that you got to watch through, maybe even watch it again, and just kind of think of like afterwards. Because there's probably a lot of stuff that I didn't like catch the first time, or like Nolan, you had mentioned like some of the underlying themes in there. So there's more to the movie that meets the eye, but it was just decent.
Yeah, so speaking of those underlying themes, they are kind of spoilers, but you've had a century and a half to watch it, so this is kind of on you if you're getting spoiled. But she's dead the whole time. It seems like it's kind of a tired trope at this point, but maybe in the 60s. Maybe in the 60s, people never would have expected that. There's this kind of distortion that comes on the screen every once in a while. It's this effect that kind of looks like water. And the first time that I watched it, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, it's just this weird kind of wavy thing. And then I realized that since she's dead, she died in a car accident, car comes off the bridge into the water, that water effect is literally just water. And that's what she's seeing because she is dead under the water. And then the other one that I saw was essentially the Carnival of Souls. The whole thing is that she's trying to pass from the realm of the living to the afterlife, whatever it may be. I think the afterlife is symbolized as the Carnival of Souls. And it's kind of funny because the only reason I noticed it is because I made a joke about it whenever I first watched it. She struggles with doors a lot. There was a time where I think, what was the neighbor's name, the creep dude? Linden?
Mr. Linden.
Yeah.
Mr. Linden. Yep.
He tries to get in her room, the door's locked. Whenever she goes to the mechanic opens the door and she shuts it. And then I think it was the bus station. She kind of tries to open the gate and it's locked. She can't go through doors. She can't pass from one place to another. So noticing that this is a movie about passage into the afterlife, it was kind of like, okay, this little weird detail about a character, because it'd be weird to just make a character who's bad at opening doors. It has so much more meaning and so much more weight, and I just liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think I kind of got a whole different perspective that I saw into it. I saw a lot of just like the theme of isolation, and with like the door things, I thought that was kind of like symbolizing her not letting anyone into her life and stuff like that. And I thought the carnival was like, is this place where people gather and, you know, there's parties and all that and everyone's having a great time. And she's really drawn to it, but it's also really scary at the same time. So that's the kind of way I was looking at the whole movie. So it's really interesting to see how someone else could just completely rethink it, because I was like, oh yeah, that's actually, I mean, obviously there's no right or wrong, because they probably left it very open for multiple interpretations.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like movies that allow that, and there is no like one right way to look at it.
Yeah.
And there's multiple like underlying themes in it.
Yeah, after you explain your explanation of it with the doors and the, you know, struggle to enter the dead, I was like, wow, this movie makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Just especially at the end of it, because she is not living anymore. And then I think that helps like me understand the director and like what he wanted for this movie, like, because I was just like, bro, what?
Yeah, it definitely took me until you mentioned it that like of all the doors, because I was kind of going in the same direction as Isaiah with like the isolation, because the whole time, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize she was dead the whole time. But I kind of saw it as like coming from this traumatic experience and not being able to, one, be heard, let other people into your own ideas, because even like the doctor and then all the other people were like, I have no clue what you're talking about, who is this man, what are you seeing, what is your imagination? So it just kind of felt like a whole like story of like isolation and how she's struggling pretty much alone because others don't understand what's going on through her mind.
Even thinking back on it, if you think about a lot of stuff she did in the movie, almost nothing she did had like a long-lasting effect. Like, she was an organ player for like one day and got fired. She went out on a date with the neighbor like one time, and he was like, okay, you're crazy, I don't want nothing to do with you. She stayed at the boarding house, didn't even stay the full week, and she was gone. She went to the mechanic shop, didn't actually get anything fixed, she just drove right out of there. So it's like, everyone could say, oh yeah, I knew this girl, but then like a week later, it could be like she was like never there, because she was like a ghost. But I was in the same boat. I didn't know she was dead the whole movie. So when I seen like the haunting in the water, like how you're saying, I didn't even realize that at first. So I just thought that was crazy. But
yeah, kind of with that, there's like two scenes where she's like trying to talk to people, and they're not listening to her. So it kind of goes with that, where it's like
never really there.
She was never really there, and it goes with like she was always dead, and it's kind of also like the isolation thing, where it's like you feel like there's no one there for you, nobody's listening, you know, you're just kind of by yourself. So I could definitely see how this movie could be so influential, because of, you could watch it like 3 times and get 3 different like ideas coming out of it, of what it's trying to say, what it's portraying. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I can't imagine going to a movie theater in 1962 and watching this, because I don't think I would have, number one, I don't think I would have understood it, but I really wouldn't have seen it coming either. And like my mind just would have been totally blown. And honestly, even watching it now, I still was kind of like, oh wow, this is good. I get why this is such a, you know, I guess a phenomenon. It's in the Criterion collection, so at least some people think it's good.
It got an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max.
Certified fresh.
Well, yeah, you know what that means, but I mean, it's one of those where I couldn't even tell if I liked it at first, and then I thought about it, and I was like, okay. Yeah, I like it. I really like it.
I said you might have to watch it twice, or you might have to go back and rewatch certain scenes. I'm freaking thinking back on it. I wish they built her up as a character a little bit more before the car accident thing, because we knew nothing about her before she crashed and then came out of the water and started going through all this stuff. Like, if they kind of defined what kind of person she was, like maybe she was outgoing, and then after the wreck now she don't want to mess with nobody, and that's why she's so like solitary. That probably would have built her up a little better, versus just kind of like jumping in with her and she's just already like scared of everyone and doesn't want to talk to anybody. So I don't know, I wish there was a bit more character development for her, if I was going to say anything.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the only characterization we really got for her was that she was scared in the car. She, like, her friend was driving kind of recklessly. The other car that they were like racing was driving kind of recklessly. But she was like holding on to the handle thing and like visibly scared. Yeah. And it kind of, to me, added a little weight to everything else, because knowing that she was dead the whole time, I was like, wow, that's really not fair. You know, because whenever it was revealed that she was alive, that she was the only survivor of this accident. And it was like, okay, well, she was the only person who didn't want to be in the car. So it's kind of fair for her to be alive. But then to know that later on she didn't want to be in the situation and she still died from it, it's like, wow, this sucks for her. I mean, obviously, but you know.
Just unlucky for her, for real.
Yeah.
It seemed like everyone else in the car kind of just went on to the afterlife, but her, she had a little bit more to have to deal with.
Yeah.
But,
I was just not understanding the fact she was just interacting with a lot of other people. How am I meant to take that as a viewer? Because she was dead the whole time. But she was interacting with like 10, 20 people.
yeah, kind of inconsistent with it too a little bit.
I kind of took it like, you know, if she's trying to like move on to the next, like to the, you know, if there's living and then there's like this middle world and then there's the like death or whatever.
They got a word for
I
that.
figured maybe purgatory,
Yeah, when
it's
you
kind of
in
like
the
a
middle.
purgatory type thing where
That's
she's
low-key
kind of
what she
alive
is.
but kind of dead because she's not really living. Like in the beginning, the first thing I picked up on was that with like religion and passion, he's like, oh, you really need to like not just get. He says something where it's like you can't just be intelligent, you got to have passion for life. So it made me kind of be like, okay, that's what this is going to be like. But she never actually really takes that step into living life, which is kind of like a sad ending for the movie because the entire time she's like, she doesn't get close to anybody, she refuses to drink, she refuses to dance, you know, all these different things that people see as like, you know, you're living up your life kind of thing, you're partying. So it's kind of like, that's what I took from it.
See, I never even thought of it like that, literally.
The religious imagery was really interesting because it's almost I think it's almost like religious adjacent, where they'll show saints and disciples in the stained glass, and they'll show like being in a church, but they'll never really mention anything that has any sort of religious connotation besides just playing an organ in a church building. And I thought that was really interesting because, you know, when you're dealing with the afterlife, it seems like it's almost necessary to have some sort of religious symbolism. And this movie just kind of skirted by that a little bit. And I just thought that was really interesting. You know, she's playing the organ in a church, but it doesn't seem like she cares about being in a church. Which, number one, why would you learn to play the organ when organs are in like one building ever, and it's a building you don't care about? But also the priest or pastor, whoever it was, told her on 2 different occasions, 2 different pastors, that she doesn't put enough soul into her music. Which
literally, that's crazy. Y'all keep opening more and more like deeper into the movie that I wasn't even thinking of at first. Yeah, because she took the job. Remember, she said it's just a job. She don't even really care about the church or anything. So it's like, why are you there playing the most complicated instrument ever? Just for what, some money? And he said it don't pay that much. So it's like, why is she even? Why is she here?
That's why I really wish they had gone into maybe her background a little bit more.
I was saying,
Try to explain it because there's like hints towards what she really wants. Like maybe like she does want to be close to somebody, but she's too scared. You kind of see that, and maybe something in her past she wanted to be religious and have that passion, but maybe she lost it. But you don't know. It's never shown. Which, you know, there's some people. I think it's gonna be like one end of people are like, oh, I really enjoyed that. I like it being open. But I feel like for me, I'm on the other end where it's like I want you to explain it to a certain extent because it's kind of lazy when you're just like, just figure it out. Just figure it out. In my opinion.
I just want to see this guy's storyboard. Like, I wonder what, like when he was coming up with this plot, what was he thinking? Like, I would love to know.
And that little chart they do or whatever, that's like the rise in action and whatnot. Like, what did that look like for him when he put this together? You know what I'm saying?
My favorite scene though was when she was playing the organ and then she was the carnival was playing and they were like dancing and stuff and she was like possessed. It was like that was like kind of scary.
And the dude's hands, low-key came on her hands and it turned out to be like the priest and then fired her like right after that. It's like, dang, you
when they would
never
zoom
went to
into
the
like
pavilion.
the stained glass and like we would see those people
Those
on the glass or whatever. That was also scary.
Her getting like, I guess she thought she was getting snatched out the car at the mechanic or whatever.
yeah.
Like the door opened. That was the only part where I was like, hold on now. I thought she actually got or something. But
Oh yeah, that was so scary.
because the door opened and she screamed and like she got swooped up, but then she was cool like right after that.
I don't even know how she got down from that because I thought she was up.
She ended up
what I was
driving out of here, so it's like,
And when she woke up from her nap or whatever, and then reversed back, I was like, oh, she's gonna fall off the thing. Like her car's gonna be
she
done.
went up there, fell asleep,
I'm so
woke up,
sorry.
and was like, all right, I'm out of here.
Yeah. You know what though? Props to her for getting back in a car after that. Like
That's
multiple times,
facts.
I would not have been able to.
I had
The day after.
Yeah, that too. She drove from Kansas to Utah the day after a traumatic car accident. That's insane.
where everyone else died. Everyone else just died, and she's like, all right, I'm taking a road trip to Utah,
Over bridges and everything too.
and then crashed on the way, shook it off, and then kept driving.
Kept going.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? That's the 60s for you.
Wasn't this whole thing in like the span of like a couple days or like a week or something like that?
You know, because she didn't even stay the full week at the boarding house or whatever.
Yeah, the guy who was a psychiatrist but also not a psychiatrist for some reason.
Yeah, what the heck?
First of all, what was up with that? But also, he was like, yeah, it had been less than a week since this traumatic event, so I guess it had only been a couple days, but it seemed like it had been longer. I don't know. I think just with the whole thing being kind of muddy, it doesn't.
You can only be in purgatory for so long. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta
Yeah.
accept it at the end.
Purgatory only lasts a few days.
Yeah.
There's a deadline.
Sometimes you die fast, sometimes it takes a few days. And then
Happens.
took her about a week or so.
I totally forgot about the driving scene, the first driving scene where it's pitch black out and you can see her reflection in her passenger side mirror, and it's kind of fractured. It's you never really see her reflection as a whole, like as a whole figure. It's I think there was like it was like two reflections next to each other, I guess, that kind of offset itself. And that was kind of my first clue that this isn't right, that something was wrong, that there was probably no way that she was alive, just because it seemed like she was torn between two places. And that's what kind of got my mind thinking about, oh, this is a purgatory. She's in between life and death, because she was literally in between places in her own reflection. But it could also have been a weird mirror. So I don't know.
Whenever you're dealing with ghosts, you always deal with some type of like reflections or mirrors or like, you know, thought you saw something but you didn't type stuff. So that was an early clue that I never even caught.
There's definitely a lot of like really small details, which just like you were saying, you got to watch it again
Yeah,
to
you
really
might have
get
to
it.
watch it twice.
And one that I noticed was the like, I forget her name or anything, but the woman who's giving her a place to live, she keeps repeating like, oh, take as many baths as you want, like multiple times she says this. It's just like really subtle weird things that you might just like skip past because like, oh, that's weird, but it just keeps on happening throughout the movie, so the entire time it's just a feeling of unease, like just something's wrong where every little tiny detail is slightly off. So I really like that about it.
Mm-hmm. If there's any one change you could all make, what one change do you think the movie could benefit from?
The car accident that basically sets up the entire movie happens a minute in.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
An actual minute. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I think it is between the first or second minutes of the movie. It's just there's people in a car, another car pulls up, they go on a bridge, and one car falls off. I don't know who any of these people are. And I don't think you see any of the rest of them except Mary for the rest of the movie. I would have liked to know
A little more.
who any of them were.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because they only showed up like as they were like exiting the water kind of scenes.
Yeah.
But it didn't really give too much of a backstory on everything, so I was a little confused at the beginning, and I would have liked that too.
Overall ratings?
And yeah, overall rating,
5 stars, man.
Tough.
I loved it.
5 stars, 5 out of 10.
Oh,
How about that?
that is soul crushing.
I'm sorry.
Soul
I'm
crushing.
sorry. Okay, 6.
I'll give it like a 7. I feel out of 10, out of 5, I'll give it like a 4. I thought it was really strong, but it was kind of missing some stuff for me to really get into it.
Well, we kind of recommended it, kind of didn't, but you should see for yourself. Carnival of Souls, the 1962 horror suspense classic, streaming on multiple platforms, and after watching this video, we hope you enjoy it. Thanks.